It's an idea the government and the Prime Minister himself have been very keen on for some time, that simultaneous polls. Ostensibly, it is to cut down on election expenses and to ensure better governance so that states are not constantly distracted by poll campaigns. But the idea has been rejected by several opposition parties in the past. However, the BJP has taken it a step further, suggesting that elections to 11 states, including Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Mizoram, that are due in winter this year, that all of these can be pushed back to be held along with the Lok Sabha polls next year. The Congress has said that if this happens, they will go to court. Now, what it would mean is that the centre would have to impose president's rule in these 4 states until the May Lok Sabha elections, except that that is easier said than done. For instance, under what grounds will Article 356 be invoked? Usually it has to be a breakdown of law and order. And then Parliament has to ratify President's rule within 6 months. And the government does not have a majority in the Lok Sabha. And then, of course, there are the very real legal challenges that are likely to be mounted, as the Congress, of course, has already threatened to do. But the other big roadblock to this entire idea came today from the Election Commission itself. The Chief Election Commissioner, O.P. Rawat, saying that simultaneous elections are not possible right now without a legal framework, as any extension or curtailment of the term of assemblies will require a constitutional amendment. He also said logistics arrangements with regard to 100% availability of VVPATs or verifiable paper trails will be a constraint.
Actually, about this we were asked in 2015 and we had made our suggestions that there will be requirement of certain constitutional amendment, certain amendments to the RP Act and certain logistic requirement like EVMs and VVPATs, polling personals and CAPF companies. Since the legal framework is not in place as yet, Commission has not taken a call on logistic issues. And therefore, right now it is impossible to hold simultaneous election to Lok Sabha and all the state assemblies. However, we have the wherewithal to deliver Lok Sabha elections with 5 poll-going states in 2019. Those are Odisha, Andhra, Telangana, Sikkim and Arunachal. That will be delivered on time.
जहां तक एक राष्ट्र एक चुनाव का सवाल है, मैं आपके सामने अमित शाह जी का वो चिट्ठी दिखा रहा हूं. कहीं भी हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जी ने यह कहा नहीं है कि किस प्रकार आप लोग जो आज सुबह चला रहे थे कि 11 राज्यों के चुनाव एक साथ होना है, ये बिल्कुल नहीं है इस चिट्ठी.
इस इलेक्शन में ये पॉसिबल नहीं है कि लोकसभा और सभी विधानसभाओं का चुनाव एक साथ हो, ये संभव नहीं है. वैचारिक रूप से यह सही है.
जब वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन की बात करते थे, वो मकसद तो 11 चुनाव करने संभव हो नहीं सकता, सफल हो नहीं सकता. तो ये जो अप्रोच रखी वो ही गलत अप्रोच रखी. अब जो ये बार बार बात करते हैं, मैं समझता हूँ डर के घबरा के कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि राज्यों में चुनाव जीतने वाले हैं नहीं.
Well, we have a terrific panel on the show with us this evening. We have Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India, here in the studio with us. Mr. P.D.T. Achari, the former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, is here. Tathagat Satpathy, Lok Sabha MP of the BJD, joins us via Skype. Here in the studio, Pawan Khera, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Mr. Sandeep Mahapatra, who is a member of the RSS and a lawyer, and Vivek Dahija, Senior Fellow at the IDFC Institute, joining us tonight from Mumbai. I would like to ask Mr. Achari first, that let us look at this idea that was floated to journalists by senior BJP leaders yesterday, which was that let's put President's rule in some states where elections are due in December, push those back to May, and in the remaining states where elections are due after the Lok Sabha, well, they are our governments anyway, we'll dissolve those assemblies early and we'll have all these elections together in May. Would you say that this, however, has serious hurdles in front of it, as we were pointing out, beginning with under what grounds would you impose 356?
Right. Absolutely, there are serious hurdles because, the Article 356 cannot be just invoked without the ground reality being there. Now, on what ground Article 356 will be invoked in these cases? Because after Bommai's judgment, the position is very clear so far as the Constitution is concerned, that the Supreme Court will certainly review the situation. That's the thing. If there is a President's rule which has been imposed, which has no nexus actually with the constitutional provision, namely the breakdown of the constitutional machinery. So that is the basic requirement where the Article 356 will have to be imposed. So that if that is not there, then you cannot impose the President's rule under Article 356. So naturally the court will go into that. And if they find that there is a mala fide exercise of power in imposing the President's rule under 356, naturally they will strike it down. So that is the position.
So it will create a lot of complications,
Yeah.
and these are genuine
So that,
hurdles.
so that is the basic problem, you know.
I just wanted quick thoughts from Mr. Qureshi on the same. That would you then broadly agree with that, what
Yes.
Mr. Achari has pointed
Yes,
out?
absolutely, because imposing 356 is not easy, and not just 1973. Which judgment is it?
The Bomai judgment.
Bomai judgment.
Bomai.
Not just that. 2 years ago in Uttarakhand, Supreme Court came down heavily on invocation of Article 356. And secondly, you invoke Article 356 by condemning the state government that you have not performed well, your constitutional machinery is broken down, and therefore you deserve to be dismissed. Now they can't do the same to their own government, because it will be indictment. And to say that we are dissolving you so that we can have simultaneous election, that will be the weakest ground. It will not stand. Therefore, postponing election by the imposing precedent rule in these states is out of the question. Advancing election in BJP ruled state by dissolving their assemblies prematurely, that is very doable. That's possible if they choose to
But
do
the trickier part you're saying is the postponement part. Mr. Satpathy, I wanted to know your views on this. Firstly, on this sort of trial balloon, as I've been calling it since yesterday, that was floated around about having all these state elections together, and you've heard, you know, two non-partisan experts here saying it's not possible. What did you think of the idea itself, though? Why do you think that it's being floated at all by the BJP?
Is it to me?
Yeah.
I read in the papers today that some thoughts are being spread that there is a fright factor, there is a scare factor, that if the states go to polls earlier and the results are bad, then possibly the parliament results could also be affected. That is one political aspect. I would not like to comment on that. Otherwise, I do not see any reason after 1951-52, you know, that 4-month long elections across the country. We had a couple of elections which were held together for all the states and Lok Sabha together. But after that, over a period of time, gradually states and the center faced political difficulties. There were not enough numbers for single party rule, and governments collapsed, Lok Sabhas dissolved, assemblies dissolved, and a natural process has come to play in the meanwhile. Now forcibly pressing the reset button and restarting the game, I feel, apart from all political considerations, the single dice that is being thrown that it will save costs to the government, I do not think the taxpayers' money will be saved, because again there's every possibility that we will return back to this disarrayed elections. Then what happens? Have we thought out our course of action? How do we safeguard the future? How do we continue this process? Or is it just that we are out to prove that nothing is impossible, nothing is difficult for the present regime? I'm not very clear on that. Personally, we have no problems in Orissa because our leader, Mr. Naveen Patnaik, had dissolved the assembly a full year while he was chief minister. The elections were due in March 2005. He, to synchronize with Lok Sabha, dissolved the assembly.
You're actually already synchronized with the Lok Sabha. But
Yes.
to make an important point, because about why press the reset button, I think what you're essentially saying is that this hasn't been clearly thought through. And let me take that to Vivek Dahijia first before I get Pawan and Sandeep and everyone else into this. Because Vivek, you wrote a piece on simultaneous elections, and the bottom line was you said that simultaneous elections are a bad idea. You said that it is anti-democratic in spirit and also threatens the federal character of our democracy. If you could explain why you think that.
Absolutely, Nidhi. A couple of things. One is that the notion of synchronizing all of these elections, states and the union, is fundamentally incompatible with the federal character of India, and also fundamentally incompatible with the state chief minister who has a majority of seats in the assembly from ruling while he has that majority. So the way our system works is, if you decide to dissolve the assembly, you can do that, and if you lose your control over the House, then you have to call a fresh election. Now this freezes that out completely and puts it in the hands of the center and puts it on someone else's timetable. That's one. Number two, again, why should a particular state synchronize with the center, which has its own different dynamics? So fundamentally this is anti-democratic, it's anti-federal, it completely flies in the face of our Westminster model. This is not the US, which has a fixed calendar. Our system is totally different. And by the way, no other Westminster federal democracy, not Canada, not Australia, has tried something this cockeyed, Nidhi.
All right, so you're very clear where you stand on this. Sandeep Mahapatra, what do you think of those concerns that both Mr. Satpathy and Vivek have raised?
To begin with, Mr. Satpathy's party, from the news reports that I've read and subject to what he says, they have supported, the BJD has supported the idea of one nation, one poll. Apart from that, there are various...
I'm not opposing it even now.
I'm thankful to you, sir, for that clarification. So my point is, there are parties like Samajwadi Party, AIA, DMK, Assam Gan Parishad, TRS, JDS, they are all supporting. And all those who are saying that one nation, one poll is going to hamper the regional parties, Orissa stands out, and Mr. Satpathy has just pointed that out. In 2014, if you remember, Nidhi, along with the parliamentary elections, 4 states went to poll, and we know what are the results of those state elections were. Orissa went to BJD, Andhra Pradesh went to TDP, Telangana went to TRS, and I think Arunachal Pradesh, if I remember correctly, it was a Congress-led government that was formed at that point in time, if I remember correctly. So the apprehensions that is being...
Where Lok Sabha will go.
No, so let me finish, sir. So the apprehensions that is being expressed by the naysayers, see, please discuss as to what is the issues, and one of the panelists has just spoken about the Westminster model. May I just point out that in UK in 2011, they have enacted a legislation called Fixed Term Parliament Act 2011, and it has been fixed that the elections, the general elections will be held on 7th of May of 2015 and then 2022, and the calendar has been set. Though there are criticism to that.
Hasn't exactly worked for the UK.
No, it may not have, but what they have done is that instead of the no confidence motion that we are used to in India, the House has to bring that we need to advance the general election, and if the House passes a referendum, so to say, or a vote that yes, the general election has to be advanced, then the House will advance. So the point is that the issues that has been raised regarding federalism would be weakened, this, that, and other. My point is, look, in today's time and era, the time of the 60s and 70s are gone. Regional parties are playing a pivotal role in Indian politics.
So that's an interesting point you've made, but can I ask you, how would the government overcome this hurdle of President's rule, which both Mr. Acharya and Mr. Qureshi have red flagged?
Yeah, that is a valid point. And if you read the law
it's a very serious thing. It's not that easy to do.
It is a valid point. And Nidhi, if you have seen the Law Commission report or the consultation paper that the Law Commission brought out, 4 pages, not running into thousands or hundreds of pages, and it has set out as to the issues that are going to be faced, whether there has to be an amendment to the Constitution, number one, whether there has to be amendments to the Representation of the People's Act, and Mr. Qureshi may elaborate on that, and he has been in the helm of things. So these are issues which are facing us, but to say that we can't implement this, it can be implemented. As I said, like, there are major regional parties which are supporting it. There are some parties which are seeing it from a different angle because of politics in all this. So to just negate that will not be a correct thing.
That was directly for you,
Nidhi,
Mr. Khera.
Why
your
this
party
trial
said
balloon?
very clearly it would go to court if these
Why
elections
this
were held
trial
together.
balloon? The fact of the matter is that the so-called overinflated balloon of Mr. Modi is now deflated. Why is he running scared? Why is he even wasting so much of airtime on these issues? There is, I agree with Vivek, there is the federal structure, there is the electoral federalism. There is a narrative specific to a state. Why does Mr. Modi want to override the state's narrative in an election with the central narrative? What is the objective here? Now the fact also is, what is the stated reason? The stated reason is frequent elections, governance suffers. Why does governance suffer? There is a jurisdiction, there is a particular state going in for an election. The code of conduct is only valid on that state. Mr. Modi doesn't get, nothing can stop Mr. Modi from campaigning. In Kairana by-election, he reached to inaugurate a road repair, for God's sake, 10% of the construction of a road, 10 kilometers from where the by-election was to be held. Did the code of conduct stop him? No, it didn't stop him. Governance does not stop. Ongoing projects don't stop. Yes, you cannot make new announcement, but that's only specific to the state which is going in for an election. So first we want to understand what is your stated objective and why. As far as
so you don't believe it's to do with saving money and for better governance?
I mean,
you're not buying that.
What price? Democracy comes expensive. Let's be very clear about that. Why do you want to cheapen this democracy? The intention is to override their narrative on every state. They have no respect for the federal structure of this country. So electorally, they are trying to disturb federalism in this country.